Hello, and welcome to this episode of Tube Chat, a series where I interview strangers on the tube for no reason. So, today I'm here with Dr. Sarah Stein-Lebrano. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Sarah. I live in London. I read a lot of social science and political theory for a living.
And you just released a book called Don't Talk About Politics. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
So my book is a rejoinder to the liberal idea that the marketplace of ideas can solve political problems. And it looks at what doesn't change people's minds, which includes the marketplace of ideas. That does not change people's mind. Just being exposed to new ideas doesn't change people's minds. Debate doesn't change people's minds, which really surprises people, but there's a lot of good data about this. However, there are some things that do change people's minds about political issues. They're just a lot more deeply embedded in about our lived experience. So having new kinds of friends changes our mind about political issues, and also new actions that we undertake change our minds as well. And through the book, I show what you can do to change people's minds if you want to get deeply involved in politics and do something actually useful instead of be a talking head, basically.
Yeah, like me.
Well, like all of us, most of us are paid to do it, but it's not that useful.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's the unfortunate part of it is when you really do want to make a difference and you're operating on the level of social media or whatever, and you do have ideas you're passionate about and you want to get them across, it's like they get subsumed into a form of entertainment. That book or that essay, New Spirit of Capitalism, talks about it, where it's like any critique gets embedded into the structure of it, and then we spoke about there, you'll get the idea of the corporate girl boss or any sort of new figure of capitalism emerging as this new free. Social media influencers are one of them as well, which I think is interesting. Influencers is a word that gets ascribed to you, but it's not something you call yourself, yeah, it's too embarrassing, but I'd love to tell me a bit about the marketplace of ideas.
Okay, so the marketplace of ideas is actually a term that came from the American Supreme Court, which is the number one reason we should be suspicious about it. But it's the idea that, ideas are commodities, basically, right? And that the main thing a government should do is just let everyone exchange their commodities. And then in the end, just like a perfect marketplace with an invisible hand, we'll get to the right ideas. And the number one problem with this idea is that it's not true. We see lots of ideas that are popular for a while, and then the other idea comes back into fashion. How could that be true if we had a marketplace of ideas that functionally worked, right? Look at America right now. We're seeing a huge re-entrenchment of old and bad ideas and a loss of rights for human beings. But the other thing about the marketplace of ideas is that it's sneakier than it looks, because it legitimizes whoever's in power. In a way, the logic of the best ideas will win is, if we're living through a period of time right now where this idea is powerful, it must be because it's a great idea. Yeah. And obviously, I just don't think that about a lot of things, right?
Yeah. How do we show people that just because something has been legitimized, that it doesn't necessarily mean it's a great idea?
Well, first of all, in the book, I do give some examples of things that I use all the time to show people this. One of my favorite horrible, stupid examples is that Elon Musk was so upset that his tweet about the Super Bowl, which is a sports ball event in America everyone cares about there, did worse than Joe Biden's tweet about the Super Bowl. And he was so mad that he got all these engineers into his office and he made them change the algorithm so that his tweets were 1,000% more popular. And that's why you have to see Elon Musk all the time when you go on Twitter. He's literally engineered the algorithm this way. It's not just that he has a lot of fans. He's just changed the algorithm, right? But how do we make it clear beyond telling people things like this? Look, this is rigged. I think the other answer is that most people are not on Twitter or even, sadly, Instagram because it's a brilliant place to be. They're there because they don't have another thing to be doing, right? Of course, it's all signed up to wire our dopamine systems to hell. But also, we don't have other stuff. We can't go anywhere. It's expensive. Things are far away. We don't have a local pub to go to anymore that's affordable. Even if we did, our friends all live far apart from us now for work reasons. So one of the main things I look at in the book is the shriveling of our social worlds. I do believe at the end of the day that we would not be on our phones if we were with our best friends most of the time,
Yeah. And this video wouldn't get any views.
Yeah.
So that's the one.
Career,
that's
democracy. Imagine.
Yeah. God, what would that even look like? I'd be so broke.
No, you'd be in the pub with your friends, and it would be fun.
Yeah.
You'd be doing something else. You'd be doing democracy.
Yeah. So, you talk a bit in your book about the need to the answer to this marketplace of ideas and this sort of listlessness that we all feel, and your solution to this is that we need to build more social infrastructure on the personal and structural level. And so what does that look like for you? How do we sort of, how does that become mandated, like into the, like, how do we build that into policy?
Well, this is a great question, but I will say I'm not sure policy is the route to go right now because, look, to be honest, our governments are bad right now, right? I mean, the best government that I can live under right now in the UK and the US is this Labour government. We're not winning.
Yeah.
And also, to be honest, almost all governments are a little bit suspicious of social infrastructure because people, when they tend to gather together for free in public spaces and chat to each other, end up talking about why the government sucks, and then they often overthrow it. And one of the things I talk about in my book is how coffee shops used to be considered quite a dangerous place because people were meeting and they were sober. And then they would start talking, and then they would overthrow the government.
And they were alert.
Yeah. And so, like, for example, the British government back in the day and the French government said, coffee makes men impotent, don't drink coffee. They started rumors. They shut down coffee shops to prevent regicide, which they did end up with in the end anyway, thank goodness. But down with the monarchy.
Yeah.
But look, the point is, I'm not sure we can ask the state to give us the social infrastructure we need because it's generally not in the state's interest. And I'm not saying this as a pure anarchist. I have complicated feelings about whether you need some of the functions of the state, but the state is not always in favor of social infrastructure, so we have to build it.
Yeah.
And the good and bad news is that can be fun. The bad news is if it's too much fun and you're building a, hippie ayahuasca sex den, then probably that's the wrong social infrastructure for democracy. That's just for, your hippie wanker friends.
Yeah.
What you probably should do is go find the social infrastructure that was already existing in your community 20 years ago, which is often the community center with the daycare and the basketball court, and you should fix that thing before neoliberalism completely destroys it, right? Or you should, make your pub into also a co-working center where there are important meetings about workplace issues, or whatever it is. That seems a little bit less fun, but in the long run, it's just as meaningful.
Yeah.
And I think we have to do it because I don't think the state's going to do it for us.
Yeah, I think a really practical point in your book as well, and one that is so practical it gets overlooked a lot of the time, is that you said, if your house burns down, the people who are going to save you are your neighbours, and I thought that was just such a nice example. And even just on a personal level, our mutual friend Iselden, who I became friends with, and going to your dinner party and just kind of building friendships like that was really nice. And I think that's kind of a good example of your book, and you talk about and building connections and building community with people, which is really nice. And it's actually made me want to have my own dinner party, but I'm afraid I'll fucking poison people.
There are many, many reasons that friends are really important. And in my book, one of the ones I look at is that our friends are one of the key things that changes our mind about political issues. In fact, they're the number one predictor of whether we will become politically active in a particular field. The number one predictor of whether you're going to the protests is, are your friends going? The number one predictor of whether you'll install a heat pump in your house to combat climate change is, did your friend do that already? Right? It's your friends, which makes sense because we're incredibly social people. We also need connections in order to motivate ourselves, really. We're socially motivated. And the other reason is simply the kind of thing you mentioned earlier. We were chatting about how our people are also the ones that save us when things go wrong. And unfortunately, we are living through a time where stuff is going to go wrong. So one of the things I talk about on my own Instagram channel is about disasters. And disasters, the number one person who's going to save you is your neighbor, right? It's not even your family because they're injured with you if you get hurt. It's not the emergency services because they're fucked. It's your neighbors. Yeah. And if you don't know your neighbors, they won't come looking for you because they won't know that you exist. Yeah. And so I'm very and I am a mutual aid coordinator in the ward of Caledonian and Barnsbury in London. I help run a food co-op in my neighborhood for 17 people. We bulk order food together. It's much cheaper. It's £5 a week for a lot of your groceries. But I don't do that because it's fun, although it is sometimes fun. And I don't do that because I want cheap groceries. I don't do that to look virtuous. I do that because people have to know their neighbors in order to understand political issues, and they have to have friends that are different from them in order to become less prejudiced. And those are huge political things. Our friends are so important. Yeah. And unfortunately, we just have fewer than ever before. Statistically, most of the data we have suggests we have fewer friends than before, than previous generations, and we spend less time with them. We're seeing a big decline in this kind of magical political force.
Yeah. I have two questions. I just want to keep them in my head. But the first one is, so can it swing the other way with friends, where does it already depend on sort of how politically engaged your friends are, or could it swing the other direction where if they're sort of reactionary or sort of just they're a bit closed-minded, can you polarize towards that direction as well?
I think so.
Is that possible? Yeah.
Yeah, I think you can have bad friendships, right? Yeah. But I think what's a good way of putting this? So first of all, interestingly, one of the things I liked about the data is you might intuit that people are going to just be turned sort of turn to whatever their friends think. But actually, that's not what you see in the data. People don't just believe whatever their friends believe. However, even if they have a friend who has different political views than them, but is quite political, they become more political. It's like politicalness itself pulls them, right? So they have a conservative friend, they're like a liberal or whatever, but then they're like, oh, my friend is thinking about politics, now I'm also thinking about politics.
So it's almost like that marketplace of ideas works when there's a base of community in it.
Yeah, but I also think it just means it's not that our friends like dictate what we think and they become like the Stalin of our brains. It's just that they tell us what might be relevant in our world.
Yeah.
So they tell us like politics is relevant. And then we develop our own ideas, which is good because sometimes people come to me and they say like the world you're imagining is going to be homogenous and unimaginative and like dictatorial. But it's not. It's just that our friends tell us what really matters, right? Even if we disagree with them. And then the second thing is, I think our friends could make us reactionaries. But I mean, look, the left in the broadest sense doesn't have a lot of things going for it right now, power-wise. But we do have like the reality that there are trans people and there are black people and there are brown people, there are women and there are Jews and there are, like we have the fact that there is difference in the human world and we want to protect it. And the more friends you have that are of those different groups, the more it becomes obvious why certain kinds of basically fascist ideas are bad.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the only things we can win with is like having social connections so people remain grounded in the reality of other people's lives.
Yeah, I think the other question I wanted to ask you about activism, and we spoke a bit about like that like whatever sort of sentiment or like motivation that you have, like for me, like on social media, like I could have a video or like an idea that I'm really passionate about and it might get shown to millions of people, but essentially I've been sort of dealing with the fact that like I'm using my skills to like put out what I can, like I'm playing to my strengths, but at the same time sometimes I feel like I could be doing more. And like sometimes it can feel like a bit like people perk their heads for a few minutes and then they go back to doing whatever they're doing and thinking whatever they're thinking, and it kind of ties into what you're talking about. So how would you like encourage people who want to get more into activism to but they don't know where to start? How would you encourage that?
I think start with something small. Like the food co-op is the thing people love in the book. They always come to me. And the food co-op that I write about is really simple. It's literally just a project where you get a bunch of neighbors together, maybe 10 to start with, just literally knock on their doors. I know that sounds weird. People are so scared of doing that, especially in Britain, but it's not that hard. You just say, hey, I'm thinking about creating a bulk buying, co-op for our street where we're going to order food in bulk. Do you want to join? It will make your life easier, right? That's it. And cheaper, better. Yeah. And then you all get to know each other because each week you have to order your groceries together, or just some of them, right? And then slowly okay, I know these guys a bit now, and now I know what's happening for them. Is someone getting evicted? Is somebody, right? This is the basic level. You should be offering someone something material as well, I think, if you can, right? Yeah. But look, there are other ways of doing it. It could be that it's like the parent-teacher association. It could be that you, I don't know, deal with the local park. I mean, these things sound like banal. They sound like suburban 1950s stuff. But that's not the point. The point is that then you know people. Yeah,
I don't think it sounds banal. Like, I think there's like, even if I wasn't kind of like semi-engaged in some of the things you're talking about already, I think underneath like what you're saying, there is like this deep knowing that like this resonates, that it's true, because we see where like discourse leads us and where that doesn't mean I'm going to stop talking, but like I have to talk. If I talk, I'll die. I was trying to think, have I ever gone a day where I haven't opened my mouth, and I don't think I ever have. It's much to everyone's dismay, I'm sure, but it's I think like it just, people know the truth when they hear it, and I think it's the idea of community is something that I think, like you mentioned actually in your book, I'm saying it like you don't know what you've written. Yeah, that you talk about like influences, you talk about social atrophy, and about how actually explain what that is first before I go into what you said about your own book.
Sure. So one of my chapters in my book is about social atrophy. And social atrophy refers to the shrinking of the brain, basically, when we are socially isolated. Two things in particular tend to happen from the research that exists. One is that there are bits of the brain, especially in the front of the brain, basically, the gray matter there, that are mostly being used in most people to do social interactions. So like right now, you and I are having a one-to-one conversation. That's actually really hard work for the brain.
Yeah,
I have to like judge your face.
My brain's sweating right now.
Yeah, it's like, right? Like, what does Frankie think? What does Frankie know that I don't know? What do I not know that Frankie might know? Like, what is Frankie's facial reaction? It's hard work. Yeah, it's a workout, full body
That
workout.
actually made me even like just thinking about that made it so much more stressful.
Sorry, like
No, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, I need to get it back sometimes. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, go
so
ahead.
it's hard work for the brain,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's one of the hardest things our brain ever does, actually. Like, it's much harder than, I don't know, whatever engineering challenges we face in some ways. So when we don't socialize as much, especially face-to-face, like dealing with complex social issues, those bits of the brain pretty quickly get rewired because the brain is extremely alive. And it says, oh, we're not using the social bits, we'll just repurpose that for some other thing, like, I don't know, Tetris, whatever we're playing on our phone, right? Which is a cool aspect of neuroplasticity, but basically neuroplasticity can be bad because we can just get rid of stuff we actually need in the long run. It's like when you go on a big purge of your house. You're like, I don't need this, but you really needed that thing. Yeah. The other thing that happens is that your brain instead spends a lot of time imagining, which sounds cool, except the problem is mostly people seem to be imagining like what could go wrong, and especially what could go wrong with the social relationships they are now no longer having. So they start being like, Frankie didn't respond to my texts. He must hate me. And actually, I bet everyone in his social world hates me, and I'm really unpopular, and people are mean to me, and I don't want to ever go there again, and blah, blah, blah. And so, these are big population-wide surveys looking at what happens to people who are socially isolated. They're big, big data sets. The researcher was very adamant with me. He was like, I'm 100% sure about this, which is crazy. No one should be 100% sure about anything. But these are big data sets, and we see this over and over again. People are losing some of their social skills when they're isolated, and they're becoming more anxious and paranoid about other people. You know? And that's really bad because it creates a negative loop where you become a bit isolated, then you become more suspicious of other people, you find social interactions more exhausting, you don't want to go out, you cancel plans, then you become more isolated, you become more paranoid.
I got sort of a pang in my stomach when I was reading that bit because I'm like, the whole idea of social atrophy is like that you might not even know that you have it. And you get, like, even when you're alone, you don't necessarily feel lonely, so it's different than loneliness. And that made me scared because I live by myself and I don't feel lonely. But at the same time, I do spend time with people. I guess it to varying degrees, you know, like I like being around people. I like talking to people, but then sometimes I just like being by myself. Isn't this so original? Like, what a human experience. What do you think the issues are with centrist dads?
Oh my God, centrist dads, yeah. Well, look, one of the things I talk about in the book is that positioning yourself as a centrist often in our debate culture means that you're pretending that, like, you are reasonable. Like, you can see both sides of an issue, and, like, so therefore, because you've positioned yourself in the center, you're the correct guy.
Yeah.
And you're objective. And
that's what they sound like. That voice you just did is exactly what they sound
dad
like.
Voice.
Yeah. It's the tyranny of the middle, I think. Yeah.
And I think we have to understand that, look, firstly, some issues just don't really have a center, right? They're like, there's not a center on genocide. I'm sorry. There's not a center on climate change because actually the person on one side of the climate change issue wants the world to be profitable for 40 years and then we all die. And the other person wants, like, the continuation of life on Earth. Yeah. And these are not like proportional things, you know, there is no center. Yeah. And so that's one problem with centrist dads, right? And then the other problem is a lot of centrist dads, and I mean this in the broad sense, are really, not always, but often they are sort of like punching left while gesturing right.
Yeah.
So they're saying, oh, yes, these, like, stupid, infantile leftists. Yeah. Of course I see their point of view, and then they punch left, right?
Yeah.
And there are other versions of centrism.
And their mustaches, they're annoying.
So regrettable. But look, I'm personally quite cringe, and I believe that it's okay to be cringe in order to be free. So, you know,
exactly.
A lesser critique, perhaps.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things, like, it's totally okay to be cringe. I think the only thing that people find criminal about someone who's cringe is when they don't know it, and I think that's quite cruel of people because it's almost like you're punishing someone for something they know nothing about. It's like stealing if you're reaching out for something and you thought it was free.
Yeah, and also a lot of cringe stuff is like a beautiful expression of human enjoyment.
Yeah.
You know, like, fuck off, let the humans enjoy. They're only alive for like 70-ish years. Let them have some fun. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. Well, there goes my channel. Well, that's the thing. I think I don't think I'm in a better position to say what my, like, work is than anyone else who watches it. But, like, what I think it is like, I don't ever see me as, like, attacking people, like, or attacking people who are cringe, because I think it's more like if I have a topic that the video is about, that's just an entry point to talk about other things, and they just happen to be beside me, but they're kind of in on the joke, you know. So yeah, well, hopefully, yeah. Like it's fun. People always ask, has anyone ever been offended? And realistically, like I've only ever had one person say, actually, I don't want you to use that footage, and that was the Guinness Wankers video. It was this Aussie guy, this really cool looking guy. And he probably thought I was going to talk about how hot he is or something, but like he was like, I said something that wasn't even that bad at all, like, but he was like, actually, no, sorry, I didn't know it was going to be like a joke. And I was like, okay, grand. He thought maybe it was an interview. Sometimes I street cast, so I think that's what it was, like, yeah. But oh, did we? Yeah. Oh, yes, we did. Yes, we did. Yeah. So sorry, there's two. Yeah.
Okay.
I guess seeing as we're on the topic of like semi-serious questions, what's your opinion on fuckboys?
On fuckboys, yeah. So look, I actually think the fuckboy is emblematic of our current political moment. True. Because if you think about it, the fuckboy is the person who's nice to you for a little bit so they can have sex with you, and then they kind of peace out, right? Not in a nice way.
Yeah, not in a peaceful way.
Not in a peaceful peace out way.
Yeah.
Like,
They have their
I
peace
don't
out.
know how I feel, but I just am going through a lot right now, and
Yeah.
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 And I wrote a piece about this actually on my Substack. But the point is that the fuckboy is actually treating the sexual interaction like a transaction. They're kind of doing a bit of like emotional work up front to pretend that they are relating to you. They may not be conscious of this, by the way, but they are. They're sort of kind of, at first they seem really interested in you and like text you back a bunch, and then they get what they want, whatever it is, attention, sex, and then they peace out. And actually a lot of interactions within capitalism work like this, right? If you're selling someone something, you're so interested in them. Oh, tell me more. Wow, I'm also from there. Blah blah blah. And then you get the sale and you get the commission as the salesperson, and then you know it's not like you're ever going to text that person again.
Yeah.
It's fake sociality to get what you want, and then you're gone. And the fuckboy is doing the same thing with sex. But actually, a lot of interactions are like this. And it doesn't have to do with sex. You know, that's why we have, like, cults nowadays. We have, you know, like, multi-level marketing schemes. We have networking. I mean, networking and fuckboy is pretty similar, actually, right?
Yeah.
It's like pretend to be interested in a person to get a thing you want, and then you're out. And I think it interested me when I wrote the fuckboy piece that people were really hurt, you know. I mean, obviously, of course, they were. We've all like lost our mind over some guy who doesn't clean his sheets, but but it's partially that actually we are all longing for like a real relationality, where the person really cares about us and we care about them, and then we're mostly getting this like transaction bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm very interested in the fuckboy as one of the many contributors to social atrophy, where relationships get scarier and we pull away from them. I don't really think it matters. You know, I think casual sex, fine, whatever. But the fuckboy is a very specific phenomenon around like the show of interest and then ghosting that is its own like strange thing.
I think part of it as well is like I don't think they think they're doing anything, like they don't realize that they're in this pattern. They're hurting people. There's a level of like selfishness that they're not necessarily aware of. But I think like when you zoom out, the whole idea of like this sociality we have now today, which has been propagated by like social media and platforms where everything is transient and fleeting, we have this sort of nostalgia, and it's the same nostalgia that you spoke about, where people yearn for a real relationship, a real person, a real connection. We have the same yearning when it comes to like this nostalgia of trying to escape to a different form of community, because like you said, like the community we have now online, it's like a stand-in for real connection, and I think fuckboys are like the embodiment of that, in like a 6'1" Tinder, baggy trousers, the bed is always disgusting. I think it's really funny because like I did a video about recovering fuckboys. I had to make them somewhat redeemable in the video, and like it's funny because it didn't get much pushback, because the fuckboys who knew it was about them were kind of reticent to actually say, what the fuck are you talking about me for? Because the game is still on for them, you know. But it's also like this evolution thing, I think, as well. Like there's and it sounds kind of grim to talk about, but there is this idea that they have of like the hunt and like, you know, the like acquiring, and then when it's done it's like discarded, and it's horrible. But like I think there's an element of it to that, and like it's transactional, and yeah, I guess it's hard to know where to go with that without like hurting people.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing is, you know, not that I've never had to deal with a fuckboy in my life. I wrote with some venom, you know. it's not that I haven't experienced a fuckboy in my time, so I wrote the piece with some venom, but for a certain X or two. But you know, it's not really a personal attack in a way, because I don't think, I mean, maybe some of these people are individually damaged and or bad, but that's not the point. The point is we live in a structure and a culture where that is even possible, right? And where it's actually really normal to have kind of superficial transactional relationships with people and not acknowledge it and not understand the difference, because so many of our interactions are transactional. Like basically everything at work has to be transactional at some level, because that's the nature of work. And then we don't know our neighbors anymore, so there's no relationality there really, right? And good luck to us when the like disaster strikes, and so on and so forth. The fuckboy doesn't know that anything's particularly wrong, because they're like, well, all my relationships are transactional, and also for the sex, right? And look, it is okay to have a sexual transaction, arguably, but the problem is when you really don't know, when you don't see like what it is that's lost and gained and trade-offs.
It's one of those things, and even if you look at like the way university is structured, like we have a connection to like say our lecturer because they have to grade our exams at the end. Everything is a relation in the market, and it's hard to like look at how do we go beyond that, like how do we look beyond that. And I think maybe the only difference, like you sort of talked about with fuckboys, is that they, like, I don't want to say it without sounding they basically use their dick. And sorry, basically
also capitalizing on a part of the world that used to be not transactional, or at least that we have an association that it shouldn't be, right? Like if you told me like, oh my god, this guy at work fucked me over, maybe I'd be upset for you. But there's no alarm in a way because of the same level, because it's like, yeah, of course that's the transactional part of the world. But there is still some romanticism in our culture around sex and romance, because firstly, we've used that to promise people that they can be in the nuclear family in a good way, which lol. And secondly, but secondly, we've kind of kept it, we try to keep it like sacred and separate from transaction. And so we are appalled when this happens.
I think this whole idea, speaking of the nuclear family, I've been trying to figure out how it works. This whole idea of, you know, the rise of the labubu. For some reason, I feel like this is, first of all, it's infantilizing adults who have labubus. It's like the Tamagotchi era. People are like growing up and having labubus. Oh my god, I forgot about Furbies.
I was always scared of the Furbies. They are quite alarming.
But I feel like it's like the labubus are kind of like training people into like sort of having this like nuclear family system of like what it's like to have a kid, to have an attachment, like as you can tell, and you're attaching it to your bag. As you can tell, I haven't thought about it that much other than that. But
well, I mean, you are gonna have to do a video of like people with labubus, you know.
It's I know. I hate that though. I hate that I have to. But it's so my next one. We talked about it a bit. My next one is like male loneliness epidemic, gig workers, interns. I think, but like. I just love the writing process of it more so than actually making the videos.
Right.
Because like there's, I don't know about like with you as well, but I'm sure maybe the same. Like when I write, it feels really cathartic and it feels like it's releasing something, you know. And it's this thing of like being able to express ideas and just get them out there quickly. On social media, kind of lends itself to that really well.
Yeah, I really enjoy especially that you can kind of test things out. You can find out where people are sensitive. You discover, like, you know, I mean, I would say I have like the top 3 stupid comments that I get all the time, which are annoying. And then I get like, after that, you're learning something every time. That's really interesting. And I do revise. I mean, the joke I make, because I also like to do a lot of public speaking, and then I get, you know, the audience with me for 30 minutes. So I learn a lot about what people think, and also where the obstacles are, where people say like, well, I want to believe this, or I want to think about this, but I'm stuck, you know? And in a way, social atrophy partially came out of that. It's just that people would say, I want to be involved in activism, but I like cannot deal with having to talk to new people. Fascinating that is one of our main political obstacles. I don't know.
We don't even we take it for granted.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, I've thought about it a lot recently because I'm writing this next book on social atrophy, but it's interesting that no political theorists that I can find have really thought about the problem of introversion, basically, or introversion in quotes, because I think it's a much more complicated question. And yet, when I talk to actual people that want to be involved in politics but are afraid to do it, that's their fear. they're not, and we're blessed in this way, that afraid that the government is going to take them
Sorry,
down.
there's a fly on me. Sorry.
They're not that worried about like the government or whatever. Their first fear is like, I have to deal with other human beings.
Yeah.
And that's number one political obstacle. Okay, well, let's deal with that.
And that's what you're talking about, that with community, and like even that whole idea of like knocking on doors scares me. But I am in a WhatsApp group chat. Oh, thank you. See, I wasn't lying. Wouldn't it be so weird if I was like just trying to throw you off? I'm like, oh, sorry, there's a flood. Yeah. Stop talking. Imagine it's like silencing women. But yeah, it's really interesting. Like the whole idea of like knocking on doors is really. I have really nice neighbors though. Like I know some of my neighbors, and and it's like I've had one of them over for dinner. We go out for coffees. We're very like different people, but like he's a really nice guy. Probably best that we're different people. I think if we were alike, we'd be killing each other. In your book, you talk about like how social infrastructure, community, and building connections with people seems to be the answer to escape from this sort of debate culture that we have, and about thinking well about politics. But like I was just interested from the book, like what do you define as, like, if you were to play the devil's advocate, could somebody say like, well, my thinking well about politics might be different to yours? Like, how do you kind of contend with that? Or is there, like, I guess it's kind of a weird question.
Do you mean like in the social infrastructure, might you still encounter someone who has really different views?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's fine, right? I mean, and look, also, I would say like social infrastructure is basically a technology. And like all technologies, my favorite quote about technologies from a writer that his first name is Melvin and last name I can't remember right now. Anyway, but his quote is, technology is neither good nor bad, nor is it neutral, right?
Yeah.
Technology is neither good nor bad, nor is it neutral.
Yeah.
And social infrastructure the same. And actually, lots of groups that we might or might not like in this world, from like the Muslim Brotherhood to, the KKK, have social infrastructure. That's why they're powerful.
Yeah.
Right? And so do lots of good groups and lots of ambiguous groups and blah, blah, blah. But the point is, like, it's just a source of power. And the reason that we need it is not because it's inherently good, it's because we've had it destroyed over the last 50 years.
Yeah.
We're seeing the decline of green spaces, the decline of affordable places to go out for anyone. Lots of like privately owned public spaces are existing now, and that's really bad. Anyway, I could go on and on.
Open for like 2 hours a day, and then they have private security.
No homeless people.
Yeah.
It's just a technology, but it's a technology that we have very, very little of. And meanwhile, obviously, the people in power still have all of theirs, right? Yeah. They still have their private clubs and their this and their that, and they're having, so they can organize, but we average people cannot as much, and that's dangerous and bad. But yeah, I mean, the goal for me, is not that we all get in the same public space and then we all agree with each other. I mean, I can't even agree with the people that live in my house about dinner, like the block, The question is, in a way, firstly, it's funny, Alice Capel said that the book is about touching grass, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, am I offended, or do I think this is good? I think it's good, yeah. It's about touching grass in the sense that you have actually met people, right? Not that then they agree with you and you agree with them, it's just you actually met them. You know that they exist.
So it's not about, when you say thinking well about politics, it's not about thinking more like revolutionarily necessarily. It's about, because thinking is you do want that.
Revolution.
Yeah.
But I also think prior to that, you just have to know who.
But it's like that the way we think. It's the mode. Like I think Jody Dean talks about, we need to change the modes of dreaming. Like, because we can't dream of a better world. We have to change the way we think about dreaming. Like, so it's like this. Like again, to go back to infrastructure, it's the way we conceptualize a different world has to be completely rethought, rather than just thinking in the current system that we're thinking in.
Well, here's a good way of putting it. I think if we're thinking about dreaming, and I do love Jody Dean's work, lots of it, but it's who's in the dream, right? Like right now, if I didn't go out and seek out social infrastructure, here are the people that are in my dream. Like otherwise, I'd only know like a bunch of middle class wankers who went to like private universities with me, and I don't know, like. That's it. I met them at parties where everyone was doing MDMA. Like, that's a terrible group of people to include in my political dream by themselves. Yeah. Your political dream.
Some of them might be naked.
Well, also, I don't know. Naked could be okay in the political dream.
It depends what they look like.
But it's that I need to include in my dream the people in my food co-op. And I need to include the people in the other food co-ops when I go to pick up the vegetables who are from much poorer neighborhoods. And I need to include the people in my dream who don't agree with me. And I need to include the introverts, because I'm not an introvert, who say, Sarah, fuck off. I don't want to like talk to my neighbors. And I have to think, okay, how could we build a world where like they're okay and I'm okay and I've taken their views into account, but somehow they didn't have to talk to me for that long. Right? It's about like how inclusive your dream is, really.
And how how has your own like personal journey been going through this and like writing the book? And you had, like you said, when you were doing your PhD, you had kind of you got into a bit of isolation over COVID. And how has it been? How has your mental health sort of, would you say it's been improved through community and that sort of thing?
Yeah, and something that I say a lot, that like I would say whenever I say this, about 70% of people are like, oh fuck, that makes sense, and 30% people are like, but this makes me feel bad, is and they're both right in a way, is like I'm a person whose mental health is almost entirely regulated by sleep, exercise, and social interactions. You know, and I could track that for you day by day. If I'm not running enough, I'm not a happy girl. If I'm not sleeping enough, not a happy girl. But the third thing is people. And if I go hang out with people, my mental health problems go away mostly. You know, I mean, unless they're really difficult people. But actually, it turns out most people are like this. I mean, the number one predictor of life satisfaction is your social relationships. Number one. Yeah. Even if you're poor, once you're over a certain level of poverty, it's just social interactions basically after that. Yeah. And that's just kind of what our brains are set up to do. But unfortunately, in the same way that, you know, we're meant to probably be moving around physically a certain amount of the day, but now we live in a world that enables us not to. We now live in a world that enables us not to have that many social interactions, right? And then we suffer, but we don't necessarily notice it. So I often think about social interaction now, and some people in the like wellness world are beginning to think about this too, as similar to exercise, in the sense that it's really good for you, but you won't necessarily feel the impulse to go do it when you need it. Yeah. Right? Like
when you don't want to do it is when you really need to.
Yeah. Like I never feel like going on a run, and I most don't feel like going on a run when I need to. Yeah. You know. Yeah. And so. And I'm lucky because I've structurally built my world. I live in like a, you know, polyamorous commune, so I'm stuck with 1 million people a day. Yeah. And I'm very sociable. And
we need a polyamorous run club. I feel like there's already been one, maybe.
They all fuck each other.
Yeah, but they already do. All of them are already polyamorous. So yeah. This is actually an ad for Pure Sports.
Yeah.
So you worked a bit in prisons. Tell us a bit what that was like.
Yeah, so I worked as a volunteer. I taught people how to get something called the GED, the general education degree, which is like the equivalent of the high school diploma if you didn't finish high school. And this was back when I was 20 years old. You know, it was one of the things that politicized me. I mean, I you know, had a politics, I suppose, but not really deeply. And then it just became an activity I did when I was in university. And I think two things happened. One is, firstly, I realized that the people I was teaching, they were not literate. Like, they could not read. A lot of them. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And that kind of destroyed my sense that it was possible to build an order where everyone had an equal opportunity, which is like a foundational thing, right? I thought, okay, this system is just not redeemable in this sense from this perspective. And the other thing that happened is that when I went home on the train afterward, always in Boston, it was like the happiest moment of my week. You know, which is kind of crazy because you have to go through security, then you talk to this person and they're quite upset, and then you talk about fractions for an hour, and mostly you actually don't talk about fractions. You mostly talk about why they believe they can't do it. Yeah. You know, which sounds like inspirational content for some like show on a bad TV channel, but actually it's true. They're mostly just like, I can't do this, I'm a loss to society, can't do fractions. And you're like, yeah, you can do fractions, we're going to do some fractions. But I remember coming home and being like, I'm really happy right now. Why am I... Happy is the wrong word for this thing. And I talk about happiness a lot in my book, like, are activists happy? They actually are in a certain sense. But this is a meaningful quality to life, right? Where you're like, I matter a little bit to this person, even if they might not be able to process that right now. I am there for them. I am helping them. You're
not looking for something for them. You're being, like, of service to them. Yeah. And I think that's the real important thing. And I feel like that's even why, like, giving someone a gift feels better than getting one. You know, it's like you just knowing that you care, like someone you have someone that cares about you and that you can help their life, you know. I guess gifts are the wrong frame for that, but
whatever. I mean, I think I worry sometimes when I write things this way that I'm almost like some weird creepy Jordan Peterson for the left. But it is true that basically if you look through all this psychology research that I work with, what you learn is that people are happiest when they're giving to other people, they're of service to other people, you know, and all this stuff that is instead built in from the capitalism technology side about like frictionlessness and ease and just getting what you want immediately and the algorithm feeding you whatever you want. Everything about that is this much more superficial kind of like dopamine happiness. And then there's the other thing, which is doing the hard thing. Yeah. And that happiness is gold. Yeah. I think about going home on the subway from those women all the time. And I'm, you know, 15 years older now. Yeah. I have never thought about anything I ever scrolled through on a reel that much, you know? Yeah.
It's funny. And I'm sure they still think about you. And what you
Hopefully
did
they're
for
having
them.
a great life and they never think about me. Honestly. Like it's not about that. It's just about like I hope they are doing something with their GED and not in prison.
How do you think did that shape how you approach like sort of uplifting people or like educating people? Like how do you change your tact when you know that there's such a divide like that?
I think the thing that I try to do in the way that I write and think and talk is to say everyone deserves I don't know, I like this phrase, nothing is too good for the proletariat, right?
Yeah.
This like old commie phrase. And actually I think that's true, right? There's no idea that's so good that we're not going to make it accessible to a person who can't read. I really believe that. And honestly, I think there are a lot of people who want to be public intellectuals in some way, but they don't really like the public.
Yeah.
And they look down on them and they think, fuck you. No, like, you know, like I like the public and I like them even though they occasionally send me anti-Semitic comments and talk about my boobs and whatever. Like, I don't care. I really, really believe that all of us can learn something, even if we can't read or do fractions, that there's something important to be said. For the human intellect at every level, and I mean level not necessarily in a hierarchical way, but at every kind of learning. And so I don't know, I think it imbued in me this sense that most people are not in a position to learn for reasons that are structural and outside of their control, and one of the best things you can do if you want to communicate to people is break through that and get to them. And you know, any level of humility you need for that is the level of humility you should have.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's great. And we have just missed our stuff, but I think it was so worth it.
Sorry.
So now no. I didn't want to cut across because I'm really interested in hearing about this. So what would be any we have a good bit of time now, so feel free to talk at length. So what do you have any parting comments for the people at home?
I have a thing on my Substack about what you should do to get involved in politics, and you should go do that stuff. Look, I like reading a book. It's great if you buy the book, read the book, whatever. Love that. But the most important thing is what you do with your life. Banal, but it's true. Go do something. It will make you happy in a deep way. And I mean, the other thing that's more serious is like we're living through a time of encroaching fascism, and no one is going to save us but us, and we're going to save each other. So you know, you mentioned the thing about the apocalypse. One of the sets of videos I've been making is about what happens in disasters. And what happens in disasters is that your neighbors save you or else you die. And I plan to be the neighbor, and I also know I'm going to be saved by my neighbors, you know? Yeah. And that sounds crazy. It sounds like I'm like in an apocalyptic cult, but I'm not. I'm just saying like, hey, London is going to flood. Like, London is going to, you know, have heat waves. Yeah. Let's do something. Yeah. I think about that a lot. Yeah. Well, it's been so nice chatting to you, and thank you so much for coming on Tube Chat. Thank you for having me. I loved it. Yeah. This is going to be my parting noise. Woo! Well, thank you for joining me on this episode of Tube Chat. Come again next week. I don't know why I always say next week, because I do these very sporadically, but join me next time. Is it going to be a week? Is it going to be 3 months? Nobody knows. Somebody give me advertisers. Okay, thank you. Bye.